All right, let's take a look at a different kind of sonnet. This one's called I Am by John Clare. Uh, First question that we have learned to ask about sonnets is, what kind of sonnet is it? But in this case, we don't have a really clear answer. It's a very irregular one. If we look at the rhyme scheme that I've put down the side here for you, it starts out A, B, A, B. We expect this to be a Shakespearean sonnet, but then it goes something like C, C, D, E, D, E, F, F, G, G. And that's only if we count dream as rhyming with am, which is a little bit iffy as well. So Clare is clearly playing with conventional sonnet form here, and we might want to think about why he's doing that. Secondly, as we discussed, sonnets are usually about love. This is clearly not a love poem. So again, Clare is taking an established poetic form, twisting it around a little bit, and radically changing the content. Instead of a poem about loving somebody else, it's a poem about the feeling of self in a very problematic way. And finally, we expect there to be a turn in this poem, but is there a turn? We don't. I mean, to a large extent, it seems like there is a complete lack of progress in this poem. The final line seems essentially to be a restatement of the first line. I feel I am, I only know I am, turns into at the end, but now I only know I am, that's all. It doesn't seem like the speaker has made much progress from the beginning to the end of the poem. Let's look a little more closely at how else the language of the sonnet produces this effect. Look at the first two lines of the sonnet. I feel I am, I only know I am, and plod upon the earth as dull and void. Notice how heavy and plodding the verse is here, just like the speaker. It's made up of heavy monosyllables. The only polysyllabic word in the whole two lines is upon, which is not a particularly flowing word itself. So the line just marches on so slowly. It takes forever to get to the end of one of those lines. So the language then is highly suited to the content of the poem. The heaviness of the speaker's existence is expressed very much in his language in this first quatrain. And that's especially reinforced by the repetition of the poem. Dull in line 2 becomes dullness in line 4. He can't even think of a synonym for dull to make the poem a little less dull. And again, the repetition of I only know I am from the first to the last line. In the second quatrain, the speaker says, I fled to solitude from passion's dream. But what does that exactly mean? To flee from passion is to suggest an overwhelming feeling that he felt too much and wanted to feel nothing. But then to flee from passion's dream, not from passion, suggests that this feeling was never even real in the first place. Is this solitude that he's searching for more real than the world of passion? He then goes into a mode of romantic idealism. I was a being created in the race of men, disdaining bounds of time and place. That this is very much a romantic sensibility, that we have the solitary figure and the transcendence of the merely physical constraints. Notice here the use of enjambment. I've put the definition of enjambment at the bottom, the continuation of the sense and grammatical structure from one line to the next. So he uses this in a couple of places. I was a being created in the race. That that's a sentence that needs completion, of men disdaining bounds of time and place. So the sense and the grammatical structure of the line continue on into the next line. It creates a sense of flow, of almost a more conversational sense of language. And in this case, it's a technique that Clare uses to suggest something of the chaos of existence, the disorderly, prosaic nature of experience. Enjambment feels less like poetry than end-stopped verse lines in which the sense and grammatical structure end at the end of the line. So perhaps there is a turn in this poem after all. Lines 7 to 12 express the typical romantic ideal of transcending the mundane physical world in favor of a more spiritual realm. A soul unshackled like eternity is a very romantic sort of line. But in this case, this feeling of liberation, unshackled like eternity, spurning earth's vain and soul debasing thrall. But now I only know I am, that's all. The last line returns the poet back to earth with a thud. So he ends up right back where he was, and as I've said, there's really no sense of progress in the poem. So this hope that romanticism might have held for liberating the soul turns out to be an illusion. And so the poem ends with this inevitable return to self. It is impossible to transcend or escape one's own being. And the poet ultimately returns to that fact, that ultimately all one can know is the simple fact that I am.